Hello everyone, welcome to Book Heaven. My name's Clifford, and today I'm going to share with you my top 10 Stephen King books of all time. Now, this is my first BookTube YouTube video. I've been very excited to get this channel going. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I love reading so much. I love talking about books. I love giving book suggestions. I love receiving book suggestions. Around 12 years ago, I got really into reading, and since then, it's been an amazing journey of just discovering new books, new authors. There really is nothing like reading. I think it's one of the most powerful and just magical and amazing things about life. And I'm very excited to get this channel rolling. Here's some upcoming videos for you to keep an eye out. I'm going to be releasing my top 10 fantasy books of all time, my top 10 sci-fi books of all time, and then on October 1st, or that first week of October, I'm going to be releasing my top horror books of all time. And I'm excited to release all of them, my top fantasy, my top sci-fi, but horror books really are my bread and butter when it comes to reading. I really think the horror genre is one of the most thought-provoking, if not the most thought-provoking genre when it comes to reading. And there's so much good horror out there. I wish there was more sci-fi and more fantasy that really caught my attention and grabbed and pulled me in the way that good horror does. But hopefully I'm wrong about that. Hopefully in my top fantasy and sci-fi videos, you all can share many more books for me to grow those lists. But like I said, my top fantasy and sci-fi are going to be top 10. My top horror book list of all time, it's going to be at minimum top 25 and more likely top 30. I am very excited to share all of those lists with you, but especially my top horror. I really think that if you love the horror book genre, which I'm assuming many of you do if you're watching this video, but I believe that you're going to be able to find new books to read, and not only one or two, I think you're going to be able to find a few at least new books to read from that top horror book list of all time. I feel like I've dug very deep into the horror genre, spending countless hours, which I'm sure many of you have as well, but countless hours searching the internet, watching book YouTube videos, looking for lists all over, looking for suggestions, and I feel like I've found a lot of hidden gems, books that I have not ever even seen talked about on YouTube. Like I said, I'm just so excited to release that, so keep an eye out for all of those videos. I'm hoping to release the top fantasy and the top sci-fi before my top horror book list of all time, and then, like I said, the top horror book list will be October 1st or that first week of October. So yes, thank you all for being here. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below, like and subscribe, and let's get into the video. We're going to start with where it really all began. For me, as I'm sure it did many of you also, one of the absolute masters of horror, Stephen King. Stephen King goes very far back into my childhood. I grew up watching his movies. I grew up being obsessed and fascinated with him and his books and his stories. I'll get deeper into some of those experiences once I get to the absolute top of my list. And when I really started to get into reading around 12 years ago, I was pretty much only reading Stephen King. I felt like he was the only writer that really pulled me in, and other writers just couldn't never live up to the quality of him. Like, he set a standard that was just very hard to reach. So my first 4 to 6 years of reading was pretty much all Stephen King. And then after that, I started to really venture out and discover so many other just talented and amazing writers out there, which you'll hear a lot more from in my top fantasy, top sci-fi, and especially that top horror list coming up. So yes, let's get started with this list. We're going to be starting off with 2 honorable mentions. Now, this is going to be a common theme that I do in a lot of my BookTube videos, is I'm going to combine books into one point on the list. Whenever they're, for example, a series or a short story collections, different short story collections, I'm going to combine books onto one point of the list. So for example, to start off, coming in at the first honorable mention, we have 3 different short story collections by Stephen King, which are Bazaar of Bad Dreams, Everything's Eventual, and Full Dark, No Stars. All 3 of these short story collections are amazing by Stephen King. I just actually read Full Dark, No Stars. It's the most recent Stephen King book I've read. And Full Dark, No Stars was amazing. That has books like 1922, which is a popular movie on Netflix, and one story called Fair Extension, which I'm not going to say anything about because that's a book that you need to go into blind. But there is a scene in Fair Extension that just truly took it to a whole new level that honestly reignited and just opened up that deep, deep love and passion I have for how good and masterful Stephen King truly is. it brought me back to those early days when I was reading Stephen King and just reminded me like, oh, like it got me excited for all these rereads that I have coming up. But yes, 1922 was amazing as well. 1922, it was like around a 5.5 hour audiobook, and I literally thought I still had 3 hours left, and there was only 20 minutes left. Like, that's how you know when a audiobook is very good, when it feels like there's still so much more time left, and then all of a sudden you realize just hours and hours flew by. But 1922 is just written so well. That book really pulls you in. And fair extension, like I said, there's a scene in that truly is next level for me. And the other stories are great in it. It's a great short story collection. So let's move on to the other two, Bazaar of Bad Dreams and Everything's Eventual. Both of these short story collections have stayed with me over the years. I haven't read them in around 7 or 8 years now, and a lot of the stories still just stick around with me. These are two short story collections that I'm very excited to be rereading. I'm probably going to reread them in October unless something else pulls me. But no matter what, I'm very excited for my next reread of these to really explore and discover a lot of the other hidden gems that I don't remember as much. One of my favorite short stories from each of them, so from Everything's Eventual, we have The Man in the Black Suit. That's a masterful short story by Stephen King. It's one of my favorite styles of horror, and I love that short story. That's the one that has stuck around with me over the years. And from Bazaar of Bad Dreams, there is Bad Little Kid, which I highly suggest. Bad Little Kid is such a fun, twisted, wild ride of a short story. That one has really just stayed with me. Ever since I read it, I love that story. But like I said, I'm very excited to reread both of these to find others, because I know that there's a lot that really hit in both of these short story collections. So to move on to our next and last honorable mention. Now, this honorable mention was number 10 on the list at one point, but unfortunately, I had to replace it. It felt too bad to have another book under it, and I had to push that book up. That book, which was an honorable mention, is actually now number 9, and I moved number 9 down to 10. So coming in at our last honorable mention, we have The Long Walk by Stephen King, aka by Richard Bachman. Richard Bachman is a pen name for Stephen King. It basically allows him to be a different person, to write with a different personality, to have different ideas and stuff. And it's really interesting reading it. I do think that this is the best book by Richard Bachman. I think he has 4, maybe more books by Richard Bachman, but The Long Walk is the one that he's most known for. This is an incredible book. It's a dystopian book, and I love the dystopian genre. There's definitely going to be some dystopian books on my top sci-fi list of all time. So I'm going to give descriptions of a lot of these books, but I'm going to keep them as basic and simple as possible without giving any spoilers whatsoever. I believe the less you know, the better it is when you're going into books. Going into books blind, especially great books blind, it can be a very magical experience. So The Long Walk, like I said, it's a dystopian book, and it's about 100 teenagers who take part in a grueling contest. But I really enjoyed The Long Walk. It's a book that as soon as you start it, you don't want to put it down. It's easy. It's a smooth read the entire read. It's short, it packs a punch, and it's amazing. If you haven't read The Long Walk yet, definitely read it. I definitely do consider The Long Walk to be one of those hidden gems of Stephen King. It's one of those books that you aren't going to hear talked as much by Stephen King fans. So now we're going to be moving to number 10 of the list. Like I said, this book at number 10 was number 9, and The Long Walk was number 10, and I had to take what was the honorable mention and push it down to number 9 just because it was such a good book. I knew it didn't feel right to be an honorable mention. So coming in at number 10 for me, we have Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Pet Sematary is about Lewis Creed and his family. They move to rural Maine, discovering a mysterious burial ground. Pet Sematary is a wild read. It is an intense read. It is a page turner. Once you begin Pet Sematary, you don't want to put it down. It's a very intense book. Every time I think about Pet Sematary, I feel like my heart beats a little faster. That's just the type of book it is. It's intense. It is a heartbreaking book, but it is written so well, and it is an intense and fun ride, and scary and terrifying ride. It is a very scary book. Some of the themes are difficult choices, temptations, and consequences. If you haven't read Pet Sematary yet, I highly suggest it. All right, let's move to number 9 on the list. So coming in at number 9, we have Stephen King's other dystopian novel, The Institute. I loved The Institute. I believe he wrote this in 2019. I'm going to talk about another book on the list coming up that relates to it, but he wrote these two books back to back, and I think Stephen King was just on fire for this period for 2018 and 2019 because The Institute is amazing. I love dystopian books. This was a very fun read. I'm going to be rereading this again very soon for sure. They just released a TV series about it, and the TV series was really good. I really enjoyed it, but it has me very excited to go back to the book because I've only read it once, and I feel like a lot was changed on the TV series, and I'm really excited to see all that was really changed. But I remember when I first read this book, it was amazing. So The Institute is about Luke Ellis, a 12-year-old genius who is kidnapped and wakes up in a mysterious facility called The Institute. If you haven't read The Institute yet, definitely read it. It's a very fun ride. I love dystopian books. I think you combine Stephen King and dystopian, and no matter what, I'm going to read that book. All right, so let's move to number 8 on the list. And coming in at number 8, we have 11/22/63. This book is amazing. I remember when I first read it, I loved it so much. I believe, yes, I've only read it once. I watched the TV show. The show is good, but they do have to skip a lot. I'd probably say more than half the book is not on the show. So if you've seen the show and haven't read the book yet, definitely read the book because the book is way better. But the show is great, don't get me wrong. So 11/22/63 is about Jake Epping, a high school teacher, discovers a portal to the past and faces a chance to prevent the assassination of JFK. 11/22/63 is a drama, it's a thriller, it's a sci-fi, and it's a very fun read. This is definitely considered to be one of Stephen King's best, definitely in his top 5, top 10 best. On if you look up most lists, 11/22/63 is going to be, if not in that top 5, definitely in that top 10. And I think it's worthy to be there. It's written very well, and it's an amazing book. So if you haven't read it yet, definitely check it out. And let me know down below in the comments what you guys think of these books. If you have any specific comments about any of the books, please share them because, like I said, I love nerding out over books. I love talking about books. I love talking about my favorite books with people. Or if you haven't read any books, let me know. And if you're going to pick them up or if you did read them, please let me know. I love that kind of stuff. All right, now let's move on to number 7 on the list. And it's starting to get intense. Coming in at number 7, we have Misery by Stephen King. I loved this book. Misery is such an intense read. Misery is about an author named Paul Sheldon wakes up in an isolated home of his number 1 fan, Annie Wilkes, and finds that finishing a story may be the only way to survive. I know there's a lot of people out there who know about the movie Misery, but they've never read the book. Maybe they're not Stephen King fans, maybe they're not readers, but wow, the movie's great, don't get me wrong, but the book is on another level. That's what makes this book stand out so much compared to the movie, is that Annie Wilkes is at a new level of insanity and evil in the book. She is so much more twisted and so much more evil in the book. It is terrifying. There are certain scenes of the book that just like, wow, it's intense, it's insane. Like I said, I don't like giving any spoilers, but since this is on the cover of the book, we will say this. In the movie, she uses a huge hammer, and in the book, she uses an axe. And I think that can really set the tone for how much more twisted and evil she is in the book. This book is for sure a page turner. I believe that once you pick this book up and once you get into it, you don't want to stop it. You don't want to put it down. You want to figure out what happens. And it all really takes place in one house, in one room. And so the fact that Stephen King can just pull you in so much in one house, one room, it's amazing. Another cool thing about this book compared to the movie is in the movie, you really just know about him typing this book that he's writing for her. But in the book, you get into it. Sometimes you'll spend 2 or 3 pages of him typing the book and you reading that book. So there is a book within the book. I really thought that was an interesting aspect of this book, is getting into the book that he's writing for her and everything and learning about the characters and the life of it. This book is amazing. If you have not read Misery yet, definitely read this book. You are in for a fun and wild ride. Now, we are moving into the top 6 books to the number 6 spot. And I say that, the top 6, because number 2 through 6, and even just talking about Misery, I want to combine Misery into that. So really number 2 through 7, but especially 2 through 6, are all so close for me. And these were the hardest parts of the list to really sort out and organize, because You could put any of them at any place and I would be fine with it ultimately. You could put number 6 at number 2 at number 6, and I would understand that. That's how close all of these books are. So these are my true favorites of the favorites when it comes to Stephen King. And like I said, Misery is very close to that. Misery should be there, but it just doesn't quite crack that list of reaching the true love and passion that I have for these books, number 1 through 6, but especially number 2 through 6, because number 1 is my favorite of all time, no doubt about it. And it always will be, no doubt about it. And like I said, I like to combine series. I like to combine short story collections sometimes. But coming in at number 6, we have the Dark Tower series. The Dark Tower series is about Roland the Gunslinger journeys across desolate landscapes in pursuit of the Dark Tower, a place said to hold the key to all existence. I loved the Dark Tower series. Stephen King considers the Dark Tower to be his Lord of the Rings. It's a dark epic fantasy. Very long series. It took me a long time to read the Dark Tower series. While a lot of books are page turners, and while the Dark Tower, whenever you're reading each book, it does have that page turner aspect to it. For me personally, when I was reading it, they were just very deep and psychological, and after each book, I didn't want to just jump right into the next one right away. Like, I just wanted to let things sit for a long time, and I remember it took me, for my first Dark Tower series read through, it took me around 3 years maybe to finish it, because I let time process between each book, sometimes even 8 or 9 months, and I would just go read other things and then come back to it when I was really pulled back to it. But yes, this book series is truly incredible. I love fantasy. I love good fantasy. I love Lord of the Rings. I love epic fantasy. When I found out that Stephen King had a dark epic fantasy series that he considers to be his Lord of the Rings, it was love at first sight for me. And each book did justice. I loved the first book. I think it starts off amazing. I know a lot of people say that the first is not as good for them as the further books in the series. But for me, I loved the first. It pulled me right in. But I would say my favorite is the third, which does continue on into the fourth. But the third for me, I just loved the third so much. It was so good, but all of them ultimately are good. I really can't say enough about it. There's so much to say about this series. If you haven't read it yet, you are truly lucky, because to get to read this series for the first time again would be a treat, as would every book on this list be. But yes, there's so much to say about this book. Another thing I'll say is that there's a pet in the book that you just love so much. It's one of the best pets ever in any series, in any book of all time. You just love this pet so much. And the villains in the book, the evil villains in the book, they're all just so good. A lot of it connects to the lore universe of Stephen King. So there's a lot of theories and things that you can kind of think about and relating to a lot of his other books. Definitely read the Dark Tower series if you have not read it yet. Truly, just an amazing series that I cannot say enough about. So let's move on to number 5 on the list. Now, for number 5, we have another short story collection, but this short story collection stands out amongst the others that were in the honorable mention. This is Different Seasons by Stephen King, which has books like The Body, which is the famous movie Stand By Me, and then also has, of course, Rita Hayworth and The Shawshank Redemption, which is the greatest short story of all time. No doubt about it, in my opinion. I love the movie Shawshank Redemption. I grew up watching it. It's my dad's favorite movie. I always loved that movie growing up. I still love it. It's one of the greatest movies all time. It's in the top 3 greatest movies all time, no doubt about it, undeniably. And the short story for it on this book, Different Seasons by Stephen King, is on that list as well as one of the greatest stories of all time, one of the greatest short stories of all time. It's just incredible. When I first read it, I was just blown away. I was just pulled in. It felt like I was just reading poetry and music to my ears, because I just read it at the perfect time, and I just love this short story. So Stephen King talks about this idea in his book On Writing, about how every writer has that original diamond of an idea in their head, and usually when they start to type it out, it never meets and it never satisfies to the extent of that original idea. This is a thing that if you're a writer or an aspiring writer, you will know what I'm talking about. But it's like you get that grand vision in your head, and you start typing it, and it doesn't meet it. It doesn't satisfy what that original grand vision, that perfect diamond that you envisioned this book to be. Well, Stephen King says that Shawshank Redemption is the closest he's ever come to satisfying that original diamond of a concept that he had in his mind. And that should tell you a lot, because Stephen King has written a lot of amazing stuff, and in a sense this is one of the greatest things he's ever written, he's saying right there, and the closest to the purity and the beauty that he originally saw the story in. But it's amazing. I can't say enough about it. And there's other short stories on this collection that are very good too, like Apt Pupil. That is a very dark, very intense and fun read, but especially Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. It's my favorite short story of all time, one of my favorite movies of all time. Please read Different Seasons if you have not read it yet. So before I move on to number 4, Different Seasons is 4 novellas, including stories of friendship, redemption, obsession, and the uncanny. All right, let's move on to number 4 on the list. And coming in at number 4, we have The Outsider by Stephen King. Now, The Outsider is the book I was talking about earlier that Stephen King was just on fire for this recent period, for 2018 and 2019, when he wrote The Outsider and then The Institute back to back. These years were just prime vintage Stephen King. It felt like I was reading Stephen King from the 80s, especially The Outsider. The Outsider is so good, such a good book. The HBO series is amazing. I do think for the HBO series, one of the main characters, she was too unlike how she was in the book. They just changed her a lot, and I really was judging that at first, but then I rewatched it again and I was like, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was. But the book is just so much better for sure, as books always are, but the show is incredible as well. Produced very well, done very well, but the book is on another level. If you have not read The Outsider yet, definitely read it. This is one of the best by Stephen King out there. The Outsider is about Detective Ralph Anderson investigates a brutal crime with overwhelming evidence against the suspect until facts emerge that defy explanation. This book is a crime mystery, a thriller, a horror, all kind of wrapped up in one, a drama, all kind of wrapped up in one, and it is so good. Oh, I love the horror aspects to it. This is some of my favorite style of Stephen King writing. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but just the type of horror book that this is some of my favorite style of Stephen King horror. So one story about this book is, at the time that I read it, I listened to the audiobook, and it was at a job. I was working with one of my best friends, and we would drive a lot from job to job, and so I started this book. My best friend, he is not a reader, he's not into audiobooks, he's not into really any of that stuff, and I started this book, and we both got so pulled into it, to the point where every time whenever we would leave, he would tell me, he's like, you better not listen to that book, you better wait for me before you start listening to it again. And I did. And so that was a really cool experience, listening to this book with a friend who's not even necessarily into reading, but then him just getting as pulled into it as I was. And we were both so invested and we were so pulled in, and it was such a fun experience. I will always love that experience. Listening to audiobooks with friends is a very fun thing to do. But yes, this book is next level. It's amazing. Definitely read this book. So we are now moving to the top 3, and coming in at number 3, which is probably the best hidden gem on this list, we have Duma Key by Stephen King. Now, this is a very special book to me. I love Duma Key. This is a book that is truly a hidden gem. It's a book that you are not going to see on most Stephen King lists, but is worthy to be there. I believe this book was written in 2011 or 2012, so Stephen King was on fire for this book as well. Duma Key is about Edgar recovering from a devastating accident, retreats to a Florida island where he picks back up on an old hobby of his, sketching and painting. And like I said, I'm going to keep these descriptions as basic as possible, because Duma Key is a book that you want to go in blind. I don't want to tell you anything about that book other than what I just told you. Duma Key is a very special book to me because it's one of those very early books that I read by Stephen King that really just pulled me into reading. I believe Duma Key may have been that book that just fully pulled me and fully hooked me in. So it's a very special book to me. I read it very early in my reading days, around 11, 12 years ago now. And I've only read Duma Key once. I've been saving it for that special next read, and I know that next read is going to be coming up very soon. I can feel it, if not this year, next year. And I'm very excited for that next read, because I believe that you read books at the right time in your life. You're pulled to them at the right time in your life. You're pulled to rereads at the right time in your life. But yes, Doomickey, it's just such an incredible book, so mysterious, so eerie, and just magical. It has a magical sense to it, but it's definitely scary. It has very scary elements. It's a very hard book to explain what it's about because it's just a very mysterious and almost psychedelic book in a sense. It's a very unique book for Stephen King, for sure. So one cool thing about this book is I suggested it to one of my friends who was getting really deep into reading and stuff. He loves Stephen King. We talk about horror and stuff all the time. And just to confirm how good this book is, I suggested this to my friend. I was like, oh, dude, you have to read Doomickey. And he read it and he loved it. He was like talking about just how good it was and stuff like that. The exact experience that I had with it. So this is a book that I would suggest to anyone. Truly an amazing book. Please read this book if you have not read it. Let me know down below if you've read Doomickey, what you think about it. It's crazy just how much of a hidden gem it is when it comes to Stephen King books. I do see it every now and then on YouTube video lists, but I rarely ever see it. I think I've only seen it once or twice on people's top 10 Stephen King books. Very fun book you can't put down once you start. Definitely read this book. So let's move to number 2 now on the list. Coming in at number 2, we have The Shining by Stephen King. The Shining is about Jack Torrance accepting a winter caretaker job at the Overlook Hotel, bringing his wife and his son Danny. Now look, we all know about The Shining. Most of us have seen the movie The Shining. If you loved the movie and you haven't read the book yet somehow, definitely read the book. You even hear all the time about how Stephen King didn't like the movie as much because it wasn't as supernatural as the book and stuff like that. I can understand where he's coming from. I just think the movie was just so good and the movie did so good. Stanley Kubrick killed that movie and did amazing. And I think it was pretty good compared to the book. But don't get me wrong, the book, there's so much in the book that the movie did not cover. And this book was fun. I've read it twice. So that is why this book was officially number 2 on the list over 2 through 6, and it wasn't lower down. It's because it is a book that I have read twice. I do love the book. I love the movie. I think a lot of how deeply I love the movie affected this book being number 2 on the list as well. But it is a wild book. It's a fun book. It is terrifying. It is intense, written so well. Definitely read The Shining if you have not read it yet somehow. Now, coming in at number 1 on the list. I'm sure there's 3 books that you are all thinking this number 1 spot is going to be. And let me tell you the 2 books that it's not. It is not The Stand, and it is not Salem's Lot. Coming in at number 1 on the list, we have Stephen King's It. Now, I think that Stephen King's It is the most incredible and terrifying horror story of all time. I have deep childhood experiences with Stephen King's It, with watching the movie, which is a mini-series with Tim Curry when I was very young. I was 4 years old when I watched that movie for the first time, and I remember just how deeply it terrified me, but also intrigued me. It was so dark and mysterious and terrifying. The clown and Tim Curry, I was so fascinated and so pulled into it. I remember an experience. I still remember I was eating corn pops from a brown paper bag while we were watching it with my family in our living room. And I remember I had to go to the bathroom during the movie, and I was so scared to go into the bathroom. I still remember that experience. Even all the way back at 4 years old, I remember just how terrified I was going into that bathroom alone, and how that was the longest bathroom trip I felt like I ever took. Ultimately, I'm very grateful that I watched that at such a young age because it really set me up for my life and love for horror and everything. And it was just a very fun experience looking back at. Yes, even though it terrified me, absolute terrified me, I really appreciate that experience because ultimately it just paved the way for my love for horror. Growing up for me, I had nightmares of Pennywise the Clown, like deep personal nightmares where it felt like I was in the movie experiencing my own version of the movie. And I had very interesting experiences where I would always be terrified and stuff of the dreams and stuff like that, wake up very scared. But ultimately, I always liked scary dreams because, it's just like reading or watching a scary movie. You wake up from it and you're okay, and you just have this cool, interesting memory of a scary dream. So I do think Tim Curry is the perfect Pennywise. He's the ultimate Pennywise. I do think Bill Skarsgård, I hope I'm getting that name right, I think he was an amazing Pennywise. He's amazing in the new It movies. I'm very excited for that Welcome to Derry show coming out this October. But for me, you just can't beat Tim Curry. I do think Pennywise should be a little bit older than Bill Skarsgård. Pennywise, I think it just fits whenever Pennywise is more mature. And for me, Tim Curry is just the ultimate, the perfect Pennywise. He fits in perfectly. He will always be my Pennywise. When I read the books, I envision Tim Curry. So yes, this book is amazing. Such a dark, twisted, terrifying ride. And I just love clown horror. Clown horror is some of the best horror. I have memories growing up of just being terrified of clowns and stuff like that, and just like so intrigued and so fascinated and just terrified of clowns. And I always have a deep special love for clown horror, and this is the ultimate clown horror book. I wish there was more good clown horror books out there. Unfortunately, there isn't. Fortunately, there's very few, maybe even just Stephen King's It. Please, if you know other clown horror books that are worth reading, let me know down below. But this really is the ultimate one. It's such a deep book. There's a lot of deep things taking place all throughout this book. The audiobook is amazing. I've read this book 3.5 times. I say a half because I haven't finished it a couple times when I've read it, but I have read through it fully 3 times, 3.5, pushing close to 4. I will be rereading it again. I can feel my reread being pulled to that again, and I'm very excited for my next reread because it's been a while. It's been 4 or 5 years now, at least. The audiobook for this is amazing as well. I really think that the audiobook experience is very interesting because you can read the book and you have your own voice of the clown in your head, but when you listen to the audiobook, you get to listen to the narrator execute Pennywise's voice, and it is terrifying. It can make the reading experience entirely new again whenever you hear his version of Pennywise and his version of that voice, and the narrator did amazing. Stephen King always hires very good narrators for his audiobooks, and especially in Stephen King's It, the narrator just crushed it for the clown and all the characters. It was an amazing narrator. It's an amazing experience. This book is huge. There's so much to say about this book. I love it so much. I would say Stephen King's It is the heart center of the Stephen King universe. You will always see forms and aspects of Pennywise popping up all throughout Stephen King's stories, left behind traces of his evil or echoes or shadows of his evil, or even him himself popping up in other stories. I just can't say enough about Stephen King's It. It will always be my favorite horror story of all time, probably my favorite horror movie of all time, that original It from the 1990s, the series with Tim Curry. To me, it is the ultimate horror book. It is huge. It's giant. It's a giant book. I would be very curious what it would be like to read this book without of ever seeing the Tim Curry movie. So it would be really interesting what I would imagine the clown to look like if I've never seen the movie, but I'm not complaining about that. I think Tim Curry just absolute killed it. His outfit, everything about him, his makeup, his hair, everything about that Pennywise was just perfect to me. So you can't beat perfect. I don't think I would have been able to envision something in my head better, but that is something I do think about a lot, is like who I would have thought of Pennywise looking like if I've never seen Tim Curry. I love Stephen King's It. It's amazing. It's terrifying. And yes, everyone, so we made it to number 1 on the list. Please let me know down below what you think, any opinions, any thoughts you want to share, anything you want to hear from me. I will love to read and answer any comments, any questions you have about books to read, anything. Let me know down below, guys. Thank you so much for being here for my first BookTube YouTube video. I'm very excited to get this channel going. Keep watching out for that top fantasy book of all time, top sci-fi books of all time, and then my top horror books of all time. Definitely keep an eye out for that if you're a lover of the horror genre. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you all have a great day, week, rest of your year, and I'm very excited to really start this journey with you all.